Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our side series, The Tech Deep End. Today we're taking a look at the 3DO M2 prototype controller. It was developed in 1995 by the 3DO company, and it can be used with the development kits as well as the FC21S and 35S kiosk units. Just taking a look at the front, you will notice that it looks a little bit different than your traditional 3DO controller, and if we go in a little bit closer, we're going to see that there is this piece of electrical tape over these buttons. Then we have 6 face buttons, 2 triggers, a stop, a start, and a D-pad. And the reason that electrical tape is over the front is that while the internal PCB is fully custom, this is actually a UFO 6-button controller for the original 3DO. They used these shells because they had 6 holes for the 6 buttons they were going to be using on the M2. If we take a closer look here with the overlay, you're going to see that those controller shells basically lie right on top of each other. So while everything inside is custom, the outside is reused. And taking a look at the DB9 connectors here, it is daisy-chained just like the original 3DO. You have the male and the female connectors. One end would go into the kiosk or development kit, and the other end you could plug in a second controller. You will see they plug in perfectly fine to themselves. And if we take a look at the back of the FC35 kiosk, you will see that DB9 controller port sitting right there, and that's where you'd plug everything into. Around the back, you're going to see that there are 6 screws, and we have this sticker here, M2 Proto Controller Pad. We have a serial number, 517, and then we have a part number. You can clearly tell that this is made in-house because that is electrical tape with exposed wires. I'm going to leave it stock because really honestly it's not that shaky, but opening up inside we're going to see the entire internals. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is the wiring harness that's going into this connector right here with those pins leading up from the PCB. And then we have our trigger buttons. Additionally, we have a 12 megahertz oscillating crystal, that FPGA chip, a custom chip on the bottom, and then a Schmitt trigger to tie the inputs to high and low. But what I found was this little piece of cardstock. I think it's a business card. It definitely isn't electronic. Originally I thought maybe that was some sort of like graphite connector on the back, but it honestly is just paper stock, so no idea how that got in there. Real mystery from there. But it's an interesting controller. I do love the red PCB design, and taking a closer look right here, you're going to see it's marked the 3DO Company, 1995, made in the USA, M2 CP board, or M2 control panel board, or control prototype board, whatever you want to call it. But there's that 12 megahertz crystal and that FPGA, and if you take a look at the solder, you can definitely tell this is made in-house. It is not machine soldered. It's about my level of soldering, so I'm not knocking anyone who built it. But taking a look, you'll see those I/O pins right there. It's like a GPIO connector, and then you have these little vias that aren't connected. I'm not sure what those are for, but that crystal right there is running at 12 megahertz. And if you take a look over here, this chip must be something custom because it is socketed with its own code, so it must have some sort of code for that FPGA. But it's a nice clean PCB, and I definitely like the overall look of it. But getting a little bit further in, what we're going to do is pop these little trigger switches out. It's very similar to the Super Nintendo where they're just held on by posts, no screws. And now that we have those out, we can take a look at the PCB a bit closer. And I do love that this has clearly been drilled out by hand. It must not have fit around the post, so they drill it in there. And another piece of cardstock. I have absolutely no idea where these pieces are coming from. It just looks like a cut up business card, but I have no clue. I'll keep them together with the controller just in case. We're taking a look at the back end of the PCB. We have the D-pad switches right over here. We have start and stop. We have our 6 buttons, and then those on the top were supposed to be turbo buttons they have removed. They may have been adding them in later on because they kept the terminals there, but there are no buttons on the front of the controller. That's where that masking tape area is put on, so you can't actually use those buttons. They're just not included. But if we put the PCB from the UFO over, you can see that it's extremely similar in shape and design. And if we go around the back, you'll see as well, it's completely different, but it does fit in that shell, so we know where this controller at least originated from. But short of that, that is the 3DO M2 prototype controller. It does function. I tested it, but do you really want to see me press buttons on screen? Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back on Sunday with another episode, as well as Tuesday for our mainline series. Sure that if you do us a huge favor, go down below and hit like and subscribe. It definitely helps us out. See you guys next time. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.